Now, continuing, we have this label collections that is also a Brazilian one called Millennium. This was originally released in 1998. A few years later, like 5 years later, they released a newer version with different covers. Got rid of some of the titles, included new ones, but basically it's the same. They were marketed as 20 songs for the 20th century. So you have plenty of really great compilations, and they used to be so cheap, like 10 to 12 reais, which is the Brazilian money, which is like $4 maybe, and I bought quite a lot. I have right now 4, but I used to have one more from Chiang and I ended up giving it to my mom because she really liked and she kept asking me about the CD, so I gave it to her. It was actually one of my first CDs. Let me start by talking a little bit about this one here. This one is the compilation of Os Mutantes. If you don't know Os Mutantes, you should, especially if you like the psychedelic rock made in the late 60s. This is the Brazilian version of this, genre. And honestly, not because I am a Brazilian too, but I would put earlier Mutantes stuff side by side with Beatles. They were that good, honestly. And this compilation, it's quite good because it covers all of their studio recordings till '72, which covers the original lineup. In '73, Rita Lee, which was the main singer in the band, she her marriage with the bass player Arnaldo Batista ended, and she ended up getting off the band, like she went away, and sorry, the band went on a progressive rock era, which is my favorite, but it didn't achieve quite the same success. And the result, we have one song here called Oa Eoze that is from their 1973 album. Well, this album was recorded in '73, but it was only released in 1992, which is like 20 years later. So this is an excellent overview of their career. Really great. Now, going on, I also have this one compilation here from a folk Brazilian guy called Oswaldo Montenegro. But this compilation is a kind of a mixed bag, because as I said before, some of these labels, they don't own the whole discography of the artists. So what they do, they pick what they have. They choose the songs that they have. But on this particular case here, you have like 3 or 4 albums only, and this guy has like 15 or more. So it's kind of okay. You have some of the hits, but not all of the hits. Some of the versions are live versions, which is kind of, not that great. But you have great songs like Bandolins, which is one of his best, and Condor. So I'm pretty okay with that. Another compilation is from an 80s guy that used to sing on a band called Barão Vermelho in the early 80s, and is one of the Brazilians' 80s bands, because the 80s was really big for rock and roll in Brazil, but they were more like in a pop side. Barão Vermelho was a bit more blues rock, with a tiny bit of hard rock. And this guy was the lead singer and main writer of the lyrics. His guy is named Cazuza, and he is such a big legend for Brazilian people. He is considered a little bit like a poet for the 80s generation. And honestly, this compilation basically covers all of his solo albums. There is a couple of tracks with Barão Vermelho here from the earlier albums. but his career was short. It was he recorded his first solo album in '85, and he died in 91, not sure, in consequence of AIDS. And so he released like 4 studio albums, and then in '91 they released another studio with like tracks that were never released before in his albums, like leftovers basically. So this collection is quite good because it covers pretty much all of his solo career. And now I have the last one. It's a guy that I love. It's called Belchior. This guy, well, it's a little bit complicated to explain for people that don't speak Portuguese, because the big focus on his music is on his lyrics. He writes phenomenally, but this compilation here is a little bit of a mixed bag. I discovered just years later that out of the 20 tracks, 10 tracks are from his 1976 album called Alucinação, which means we have one full album in this compilation, which doesn't make much sense for a compilation. And you have a couple of versions that are live versions, and some is scattered here and there from the 80s. So as I said, I'm glad because of this 76 album, because it's fully here, because it's really hard to find in CD. Really hard to find. I'm not even sure if there is a CD version. I think there is, but I've never seen it. So I'm really glad I have this one here. Now, moving along, I would just comment about it. I will not really focus on it. There were the magazines compilations. For instance, this one, and this one came. Oh, sorry, this one came in a magazine, one of the biggest musical magazines in Brazil, that was called Showbiz. But they're basically promos, because the magazine was published by a company that was also a record label. So of course they put all of their new bands into this promo CDs, because it was an advertisement for free basically. The cost of a CD like this is very, very cheap. And also there was a magazine that was really nice called Planet Metal. As the name indicates, it was only heavy metal, power metal, and a bit of thrash metal, and death metal too, but mainly traditional heavy metal and power metal. This magazine had, I don't know, around 20 editions maybe, and all of them came with a CD like this. All of them with 15 or 16 tracks and over 70 minutes material. I discovered great bands in these compilations. Great bands here. And I remember when I first heard this one, the first track is Glenn Hughes' You Kill Me from his 1999 album. And it's such a phenomenal track that, I only discovered because of this. Otherwise, I would not really got into Glenn Hughes' solo career. I also happen to have 2 editions of this labels compilations from Poland that is called Złota Kolekcja. Złota Kolekcja, it's literally, the translation is Golden Collection, and this collection is quite curious. They also had 2 editions, like one in earlier 2000s and then another one in the middle of the 2000s, 2005 or so. And this is the newer artwork. This one is called Lata Dziewięćdziesiąte, which means 90s, the 90s. This brings up 19 different bands from the 90s, and I got it as a present, as a birthday present from my wife. because she knows I have two periods of music that I'm really a fan of, the 70s and the 90s, and having something like this helps me a lot to discover new good Polish bands that I didn't know before. And then a second one, it was actually from my wife's collection, and I'm glad that she had it, because I discovered this guy and I really fell in love with his music. His name is Grzegorz Turnau. Now, this guy, here in Poland they have something, I don't quite remember the name of it. I might be wrong, sorry about that. But they call it Poezja śpiewane, if I'm not wrong, which literally means sang poetry. Which means that the text is very, very important to the music, or so they say. Honestly, I'm not able to understand 100% of Polish yet, but for me, I don't really need it. This guy is just fantastic. I'm really, really looking forward to buy his other records, his old records, because I really love this guy. Now, continuing, I would like to speak just two more about two more kinds of compilations. One of them, they are weird compilations that I have, and some of them are just, you know, different. One of them, it's a compilation I have that is kind of a weird for me. If someone has any information about this compilation, please let me know. This is a compilation from Bob Dylan, and it's called Golden Best. As you can see here, this is a Japanese CD. But this is really weird, because even though the back cover says Tokyo, Japan, the CD itself says made in Korea. And the CD, it's such a weird thing. I'm not sure if you will be able to see it. I'm not sure if you can see if on the microwave. Well, guess what? When I got this CD from an ex-girlfriend from my brother. When I got this CD, she told me that the CD was like that. She bought it like that. And honestly, I remember in my old stereo player, it was playing perfectly. Now I just cannot make it play anymore. There is these two boxes. In July 2014, last year, I went on a work trip to Ciudad del Mexico in Mexico, and when I was coming back, I was like, no, I have to bring some CDs. You know, some Mexican CDs, I have to. So I decided that compilations were the best way, because I'm not really familiar with Mexican music. I know a couple of bands, but not really familiar with. So I decided that I would buy compilations. And these are like 3 CDs, boxes, that one of them is Grandes Compositores Mexicanos. This is like the greatest Mexican composers, and this one is kind of a mixed bag. It's not that great, but it's nice to see the Mexican music, because I've never heard it before, so I think it was okay, but it's not the greatest. And this one is really nice. This one is really, really nice. It's called Los Cinco Grandes del Rock, which means the 5 big of rock, which means the Mexican rock, of course. And then you have, of course, 5 names, 5 different artists in 3 CDs. So you have a bunch of tracks from the 60s and 70s, some 80s stuff. And honestly, this is really great. If you happen to find it somewhere, I would recommend it to get to know a little bit of Mexican pop rock. This one is a great one, and unfortunately, nobody noticed this CD. This was released in 2013 by I Magnifica, which is an Italian label, and this covers the greatest Italian 70s prog rock bands together with North American, with British legends of prog rock. So you have, for instance, Ian Anderson, which is from Jethro Tull, playing with Premiata Forneria Marconi, or Steve Hackett and Goblin, or Tige van Leer, okay, he's Dutch, with Raccomandata con ricevuta di ritorno. So this is absolutely amazing, and all of these tracks are live. If I'm not wrong, they were recorded in a festival held in 2011, I guess. I might be wrong. I would recommend really this one for you to check it out, because this is a great compilation. This one, everybody probably knows about this one. It's called the Dutch Woodstock. This is the Holland Pop Festival that was held in 1970 in Netherlands. And finally, there is a version with two CDs and a DVD that was released by Gonzo Multimedia last year. And this is fun. This is really fun because you have these bootlegs like forever in the market, and I'm not really sure if before that there was a official version. So this one is quite interesting for you, especially the DVD. I prefer the DVD from these live compilations, because you have like one song from each artist, sometimes two songs. So the DVD, for me it's more interesting. So that's it for this part. I'll see you tomorrow with the part 3 and final.